To understand Islam and the Muslim world more, buy my book, The Curse of God, Why I Left Islam. Available in all your favorite online bookstores.
All right, folks, this is Harris Sultan, the ex-Muslim atheist. Obviously, a lot of people have spoken about it in a lot more detail, but it's important for people like us to keep repeating these things so more and more people can become aware as we get more and more audience. Here's this verse that a lot of ordinary Muslims don't even understand. A lot of Muslims don't even know about these things, such as abrogation of Quranic verses. Now, obviously, scholars know, and some basic intermediate students also know about this, but not everyone knows about it. The common concept, as you know, preservation of the Quran, and people think that they have learned few arguments, and they say, "Oh, bring a surah like this," as though it's unbeatable or something very special. And then, no matter what you throw at them, they would always say, "Aha, it's not as good as the Quran," because obviously subjective and it's based on your opinion. And people who don't even know any Arabic, they would also say, "Aha, Quran is better." So that's how their minds are conditioned, and that's how they've been brainwashed. But there are a lot of other critical things they never get to see, and we are responsible. So we have a responsibility to educate these Muslims, and as a result, a lot of Muslims are leaving Islam, and we know that. We know how these Islamic apologists are getting upset over it. Why there's so many ex-Muslims rising everywhere, whether it's Iran or Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Pakistan or India, wherever. There are ex-Muslims rising everywhere.
And these weak Muslims in the West, sending me emails and this, I'm losing my faith and I'm a Hafiz, I'm losing, get the hell out, you are never a strong believer in the first place, you weakling. That's why you are where you are, you imbecile.
And that's testament to the fact that more we talk about these things, more we talk about the problems in Islam, more people realize that there is a problem. So one such problem is the abrogation of verses. So I'll just quickly go through this one verse. Now that says that this is obviously Surah Baqarah, verse number 106, chapter 2, verse number 106. We do not abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten, except that we bring forth a better one than it or similar to it. Do you not know that Allah is over all things competent? It's just funny at the end, Allah said, do you not know that Allah is over all things competent? It's like an abusive husband beating up his wife and saying, oh, when a wife catches him do something nasty or something that he shouldn't be doing, and he beats her up, and then on top of that he says, what, are you doubting my wisdom? Don't you know who I am? I'm so smart. I know this. And that's exactly what Allah is saying, because he knows he's in the wrong here. He changes his mind. He's forgotten about his previous verses, and now he's been caught out. And then at the end, he just throws in, well, I know everything. That's a funny thing as well. So basically what this verse is saying, that, we don't forget it. We just bring something which is better than before. So now that means that the first, what was given, it wasn't perfect. So, your Allah itself is saying that, forget about the previous one. Let me bring something better. And what comes after is also as pathetic as the previous one. Let's be fair on that. That's point number one. Second thing is, why did Allah use the word forgotten? We haven't forgotten it. Because when you lie so much, what's the golden rule? I think it's Prophet Muhammad's own hadith as well. One man came to Muhammad and said, oh, Muhammad, I'm very forgetful. And Muhammad said, I think you've read this, Muhammad or Ali, one of these two people said it. Oh, you forget everything. Well, stop lying. So we know Muhammad used to forget Quranic verses as well. He even used to forget, or purposefully, when something else suited him, he brought out something else. Obviously, he had Allah's ear, so he could bring out anything he wanted. So that's where the concept of abrogation came in. Let's just say Muhammad would say one thing now which suits him, and then years later he either forgets it or it doesn't suit him anymore, so he would come up with something new. He would come up with a new verse. Now, because it came later than the previous one, the latter takes precedence over former. That's the methodology. As I said, that clearly means that the previous verse wasn't good enough, or Muhammad just simply forgot, or Allah actually forgot. We all know that Allah is the fake ID of Muhammad. It's Muhammad who's making these things up. So what's the biggest example of abrogating verses? Now here's the first one. We know that Muhammad's wife Aisha was accused of cheating on him because Muhammad wanted to protect them, and there were 3 people who were accusing Aisha. So he came up with a verse and said, well, you need to produce 4 witnesses. Even though, as I've said it before, Muhammad was he had an OCD of 3 things. He would knock 3 times. He would say sometimes, he would say things 3 times. And you've seen some other people like Muhammad Hijab, these idiots who follow this man. They also say things 3 times, like, Wallahi, you finished. Wallahi, you finished. Wallahi, you finished. As though we didn't hear the first time. Of course, we heard it the first time. What difference does it make whether you say it once, 3 times, or maybe 4 times? You could have said it 5 times. Well, it still wouldn't mean anything. Wallahi, you finished. Anyway, so we know Muhammad had OCD and he would do things 3 times. But why did he ask for 4 witnesses instead of 3 witnesses? Even though perfectly. And maybe those people who were accusing Aisha of adultery, they also would have thought, okay, well, it's 3 of us. Since Muhammad does everything in 3s, therefore 3 of us should be sufficient in accusing her and getting her convicted. But anyway, so let's come back to the abrogation of verses. Here is one of the verses that came before. Those who commit unlawful sexual intercourse of your women, bring against them 4 witnesses from amongst you. And if they testify, confine the guilty women to houses until death takes them, or Allah ordains for them another way. Now, this verse obviously came when Aisha was accused of adultery. Muhammad came up with 4 witnesses, not 3. As I said, everything was in 3. So how come 4 witnesses this time? Because he wanted to protect Aisha. However, he still wasn't 100% sure. He still wanted to make up something. He wanted to leave a way out for himself. So he said, confine guilty women to their houses until death takes them. So confine them forever. Or Allah ordains for them another way, which is basically, again, Muhammad. Like, let's just say, like, I want to forgive her. What do I do? So this was the first verse. So Muhammad making up this verse is keeping all of his options on the table. Confine them to their houses, or Allah will give him some other, unless he finds out something else. However, now once this matter was resolved, the 4 witnesses couldn't come forward. Only 3 guys came forward, and they were punished as well for wrongfully accusing her, because Allah had whispered in Muhammad's ear that Aisha is innocent. She never did anything cheeky. So, but later on, now Muhammad was very possessive. We all know. We know that Prophet Muhammad didn't want anyone to look at his wives either. Therefore, initially, and that's a common apologetics that we get from Muslims, that the abaya or the purdah verse is just for the wives of the Prophet. So we know that this tells us that Muhammad didn't want anyone to look at his wives. He didn't want them to marry again, even after he's dead. So we know what kind of a character Muhammad was. He was very possessive. But he wanted to give something to people like Umar as well, and some other possessive men as well, because obviously these are cavemen, these are ancient men, and these guys were very possessive. So what he did, another verse at another time came in, that the unmarried women or unmarried man found guilty of sexual intercourse, lash each one of them with 100 lashes, and do not be taken by pity for them in the religion of Allah. If you should believe in Allah and the last day, and let a group of the believers witness, blah, 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 blah. So he changed his mind. So now the unmarried women should be given 100 lashes. Now, the previous verse has been abrogated, and now this has to be applied. Now here, Allah has changed his mind, and now there are 100 lashes. The confinement part is gone. The confinement part is gone. Now women don't have to be confined. I mean, we know in ancient kings used to do it when they were sick of their wives, or they didn't want to have anything to do with them. They wouldn't allow them to go on and live their lives, but they would actually confine them to their houses or turn them into nuns. That's what happened in the Western world. But here, Muhammad initially went down that route, but then he said, no, screw it. There was actually another verse of Rajam, which was actually about stoning married women if they were found guilty of adultery. But then that verse obviously got eaten by a goat, by a sheep. So that's why we don't have that verse. But apparently, according to Aisha, that verse was part of the Quran. So see, guys, I mean, what kind of a God, what kind of a creator of billions of galaxies who had actually planned this throughout? He knows everything, 100 trillion years into the future. He knows everything. But then he says something and then he forgets it. I mean, he had one job to do, to issue an uncorrupted book, final book. That's what he had to do. He knew it and then still messed it up. He would say something and then change his mind and then say, okay, I'm replacing it with something better. Something better, meaning the previous one wasn't as good or wasn't perfect.
To help me produce more videos like these, support me on Patreon or PayPal.